time management in a way has to be reinvented given circumstances that we found ourselves in right now. Let's now look at two different examples, one of which is a business development manager, also called a hunter. What are the 7 core activities that these people can prioritize over others in order to become really successful at business development right now? Imagine now that you had your KPIs given, let's say at the start of the financial year or at the end of last financial year or calendar year or whatever you use. And that might have been well set at the time, but a lot of has happened since. And so now it's important that we go kind of back to the drawing board and learn how to plan, because what initially looked really realistic and potentially maybe a stretch at that time might be very different right now. And even the way on how to go about it might be very different again. And so first things first, planning. How much time do we have left this year? How many hours in the day do we have? How many days in the week? How many people could we potentially call upon? Who are the people right now that might really need our product and services most? Ask ourselves really good questions to plan a different future, a different, present, right? This is really a really important skill set that we, again, want to reinvigorate right now and kind of help to come up with new answers to a new reality. Second thing is prospecting. Once you know who you're going to be spending time with and what you're going to offer them, how your approach is going to be, how you're going to create leads, how you're going to spend time on it, how you're going to convert them and all of that, that's the planning part. Then it's actually time to put the rubber to the road and go up on the road and go in hunting. And that's prospecting. Prospecting is your ability to spend more time with better people and to make sure that that time is really paying off for them, of course, and for you. And so prospecting is your ability to know how to use your time wisely. I hear time and time again people saying that they're spending a lot of time and they're working really hard and it's not going anywhere and there's no results yet. Now that, of course, is not spending time wisely. Clearly, that is feedback to us that we're not really effective at what we're doing, which is why some of these other key time activities are critical to get right. These activities also go hand in hand with your skill set. So it's not just about the doing, it's also about getting some level of proficiency at those activities so that your time invested is paying off. It's one thing to be busy being busy, but another thing to be busy being productive. Next thing is your first impressions. Now, as you are, let's say, prospecting, we all know that people create a snap decision or a snap judgment about other people within seconds. And so getting your first impressions right is critical to the entire success of your endeavor, which is what I mean now as well. Part of your planning consists of knowing who you are going to meet, who you are going to call upon, and know what to expect. So as most athletes, before they go for a sprint or a long run or a marathon, they don't just rock up on time. They just first do the stretching, the warming up, and all these sort of exercises to get in the zone mentally to build their energy up and be ready as soon as, let's say, that shot goes off. The same applies for business development managers. We all want in that role to know who we are going to meet up with and be ready to be productive from the first few seconds right away. And that, again, is an activity to do, which is planning for meetings up front, which a lot of people that do my communication mastery programs, they know exactly that I really swear by proper prior planning, because that prevents poor performance and, of course, builds great performance instead. So first impressions is one of those key skill sets again and activities that you want to get engaged in. Now, once you then pretty much have opened the door, so to speak, proverbially speaking, that means then that people are, letting you in their heart because they felt that you are genuine, that you are a professional, and they feel comfortable in your presence. So the heart opens up. As soon as the heart does, guess what the brain says? The brain switches on too and lights up and says, now I am ready to listen to you. I am ready to have a conversation with you. I am also open to receiving suggestions of yours for me to improve my life, to improve my business, to improve my relationship, to improve my finances, whatever it is, the topic that you are addressing with them. So now is your time for qualifying. You need to first get people ready for it, meaning they're open-minded and open-hearted, and only then you can start asking some really good questions that allow you to uncover some of the challenges and problems that you could do something about and that would really move the needle for them. So that's your qualifying here. Great questions, both open-ended and closed-ended questions. Then, once you've done that, either at the same point in time or in a later meeting, you will go back to them and then demonstrate your solutions to them. I personally prefer, especially for higher value products and services, to first go back to the office and do some research, properly plan again for the next meeting, knowing that at the time of the qualifying, I've already agreed on the next time and we're going to sit in together and go through some options for them to consider. So you pretty much schedule the next meeting in straight away if you are not doing it right there and then. Now, for lower tier products and services, it's probably more useful that you do it there and then. For the higher tier products and services, I also always recommend take a step back first, say just convene on another time to meet up again and then do your proper analysis and research and preparation on the whole before you go back and present it to them in your demonstration. Then influencing. The influencing part is the part then also where you keep checking in with your prospect after you've done your presentation or demonstrating. So some people will have already agreed during your demonstration if you did it really well, and they will know already ahead with it, especially if they were fast-paced, people that could make a snap decision because they have the authority to do it, but also because they felt that it was right and they were okay to go ahead with it. But some people won't necessarily do it there and then. Particularly the slower paced, more cautious people will be probably wanting to take some time out to reflect on it themselves. And therefore, it's important that you get that those profiles or those buying behaviors picked up in the early pieces so that you can kind of openly address them upfront and say, look, I can tell that this is going to be something really important to you that you won't necessarily make a decision on like that. And so I fully understand where you're coming from. And so how would it be if you and I were to revisit this together again in about 2 weeks' time? They then say potentially, yes, that sounds very fair. Great, you say, you look at the diary and you organize a time so that you can actually revisit it together. So that's how you preempt a potential concern that might lock up the buyer and therefore allow them to feel more comfortable again. That then allows you to then later on follow up with influencing. Your influencing skills, your influencing activities are just you picking up the phone and saying, hey, how are you going? I was thinking of you. There was this one specific question you had and just wanted to fill you in on what that means really. It's you just, again, finding good reason to reconnect with those people and keep influencing the buying decision. The better you do this, the more you stack up the chances in your favor, because a lot of people have allowed fear, for example, here to get in the way. That fear then looks like, I don't want to really call them because they might feel that I'm pressuring them, or they might feel that I'm really going a little bit too far. The thing is, yes, there is a fine balance between how often you do it and how you do it, but definitely people that are in the market to buy a product or a service and want a solution to a problem that they cannot fix on their own, they will buy anyway. And so if you are the one who separates yourself and you genuinely want to do right by them, so you go above and beyond and provide them with additional help, well, it's so much easier then for them to feel comfortable that you are the right one for them and go ahead with you, which is then, of course, the last thing. Closing. How do you build up some wonderful capability, some skill sets and abilities, and just, you come up with words that allow people to feel comfortable to say yes to your solution, being your product or service. That is really an entire skill set in its own. And you cannot really rely on either one of them to kind of make it for you, because you need all of them as a business development manager. And you need all of them at a higher level, because the market, seriously, is getting a bit competitive out there, right? we know it. There's other people that might do something similar to what you do. And so you building this continuously and always upgrading, like you do with your computers, there's always new upgrades, new software, new updates available for your hardware and software. And therefore, you want to make sure that you keep abreast of the latest. You cannot just rely on something you did 2 years ago to build these skill sets. You can't just rely on your habits that were current and that were really working well for you before COVID. Because right now you might find yourself having less face-to-face times and more Zoom meetings or conference calls or just general calls over the phone, right? So it's important that you keep, let's say, harnessing all of this and keep updating it so that you can keep being the best at what you do.